There are people in your life right now who are not safe to trust, not because they are openly cruel or obviously hostile, but because their danger is quiet. It hides behind warmth, concern, intelligence, and emotional closeness. Carl Jung understood this better than most. He wasn't interested only in what people say or show. He studied what they conceal. And he warned that the most destructive personalities are rarely loud or aggressive. They are subtle. They blend in. They present themselves as supportive, harmless, even caring, while slowly dismantling you from within. They smile. They listen. They seem safe. And that is exactly why they slip past your defenses. Jung believed that people do not reveal who they are. They reveal what they believe will work. And if you are not psychologically awake, you will offer your time, your energy, your loyalty, even your love to someone who was never capable of respecting it. That is why Jung focused so intensely on the shadow, the unseen motives, the unconscious drives, the hidden power games beneath the surface of personality. From his work emerge 6 recurring patterns, 6 psychological masks that feel harmless at first but become destructive over time if you don't recognize them early. The first is the chronic victim. This person lives in a permanent state of injustice. Everything that happens to them is someone else's fault. They are always wounded, misunderstood, mistreated. At first, your empathy activates. You want to help. You listen. You support. But Jung noticed something unsettling. Permanent victimhood often hides a refusal to take responsibility. When someone is always the victim, they never have to change, never have to confront their own shadow, never have to grow. Their suffering becomes leverage. They use guilt as currency. Slowly, your compassion turns into obligation. You don't support them. You carry them. And beneath the helplessness is control. They don't want healing because healing would take away their power. Jung warned that people fused with this pattern protect their identity as victims at all costs. If you stay too long, you'll begin to feel guilty for being stable, functional, or whole. The second pattern is the charming mirror. Jung described this as the persona trap. This person reflects you back to yourself with uncanny precision. They agree with your values, admire your goals, echo your beliefs, validate your insecurities. Being around them feels easy, affirming, almost magical. But over time, something feels hollow. You realize you don't actually know them. That's because there is no solid self being shown. There is only adaptation. Jung warned that when someone over-identifies with their persona, the real self remains hidden, unaccountable, and undeveloped. The charming mirror isn't loyal to you. They're loyal to being admired. The moment you stop reflecting approval, the mask slips. They withdraw, turn cold, or quietly turn against you. You didn't connect with a person. You connected with a performance. The third type is the passive-aggressive enabler. This one is particularly difficult to spot because they never confront you directly. They nod, they listen, they appear supportive, but their words subtly weaken you. They frame doubt as care, fear as realism, judgment as wisdom. I just don't want you to get hurt. That's ambitious. I'd hate for you to be disappointed. Jung saw this as the shadow of the helper. These people don't want you to fail, but they don't want you to outgrow them either. Your independence threatens their relevance, so they erode your confidence quietly, making sure you never fully trust your own instincts. If you're not conscious, you will internalize their limits as your own and mistake restraint for maturity. The fourth pattern is the secret competitor. This person pretends to be on your side, but internally they are measuring themselves against you. They applaud your success, but always redirect attention. They minimize your wins, subtly compare, or quickly tell a story that puts them back in the center. Jung believed this behavior comes from unacknowledged inferiority. They don't hate you. They hate what you reflect back to them. Instead of facing that discomfort, they compete covertly. They copy your ideas, offer backhanded praise, support you only when they feel ahead, and when you stumble, they feel relief disguised as concern. This is not friendship. It is proximity used as protection against their own insecurity. The fifth type is the spiritual narcissist, the one who appears wise, evolved, emotionally advanced. They speak calmly. They reference healing, awareness, mindfulness, shadow work. They present themselves as above ego and conflict, but Jung warned that spirituality can become the most elegant disguise for ego when the shadow is not integrated. This person controls not through aggression, but through moral and emotional superiority. When you express anger or disagreement, they frame it as your lack of growth. That sounds like a trigger. That's your projection. You still have work to do. Their language sounds conscious, but it invalidates your reality. You cannot confront them because they redefine confrontation as your flaw. They don't want equals. They want followers. They don't want healing. They want authority. The sixth and final pattern is the empathic controller. This person identifies as deeply sensitive. They feel everything. They read moods, emotions, energy. At first, this feels like intimacy. You feel seen. But slowly, sensitivity turns into control. You begin to manage yourself to avoid upsetting them. You suppress reactions. You walk on emotional eggshells. If you express frustration, they collapse, and suddenly you are responsible for their pain. Jung warned that unintegrated sensitivity often masks emotional immaturity. Instead of learning to regulate themselves, they require others to do it for them. Their chaos becomes your burden. Their emotional storms define the relationship. That is not closeness. That is submission. Jung believed these patterns emerge when people never confront their shadow. So instead, they externalize it. They project manipulation, control, insecurity, and pain onto others. These people are not rare. They thrive where boundaries are weak and self-awareness is low. And the uncomfortable truth Jung emphasized is this: you don't attract these people by accident. You attract what you haven't integrated. If you tolerate manipulators, there is a part of you that fears asserting truth. If you attract victims, there may be a need to feel needed. If charm repeatedly deceives you, approval may still outweigh clarity. This is not blame. It is responsibility. Jung didn't want people to become cold. He wanted them to become whole. When anger is repressed, disrespect is tolerated. When intuition is ignored, red flags are missed. When self-protection is shamed, access is given too freely. Some people are not growing, they are repeating. And unless you value inner alignment over outer harmony, you will keep bending for those who would never bend for you. So what now? Begin by auditing your circle. Notice who drains you, confuses you, or constantly requires explanation. Withdrawal, Jung believed, is an act of consciousness. Let your shadow speak. Let yourself say no. Let yourself walk away without justification. Stop explaining boundaries to people committed to misunderstanding them. Trust the first signal you felt, not the story you told yourself afterward. That hesitation wasn't paranoia, it was perception. Jung didn't want you to fear others. He wanted you to trust your own awareness. The more of your shadow you integrate, the fewer manipulators gain access. Not because you hide, but because your presence no longer invites distortion. And without raising your voice or proving anything, you become someone who cannot be easily used, confused, or controlled. Awake, whole, and very difficult to deceive.